All right, so we're going to read Curious George Gets a Medal. Curious George Gets a Medal. Let's see. It's kind of a long book. I'm going to try to read it all here. Curious George Gets a Medal. Let's see. I'm going to focus here a little bit. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. George was alone this morning, looking at a picture book when the doorbell rang. Ding dong! It was the mailman. We focused? I can't really tell. It was the mailman. Here's a letter for you, he said. Put it in your friend's desk. He'll read it to you when he comes home. George was curious. It was not often that somebody wrote him. Too bad he could not read the letter, but maybe he could write one himself. In the top drawer of the desk there was paper and ink and a fountain pen. George sat down on the floor and began to write, but the pen was dry. I don't know if this is going to end very well for a monkey to have a pen. Do you? It needed ink. George would have to fill it. He got a funnel from the kitchen and started pouring ink. But instead of going into the pen, the ink spilled all over and made a big blue puddle on the floor. Uh-oh. It was an awful mess. Quickly, George got the blotter from the desk, but that was no help. The puddle grew bigger all the time. George had to think of something else. Why, soap and water. That's what you need to clean up with. From the kitchen shelf, he got a big box of soap powder and poured all the powder on the floor. I think George is making a huge mess here. What do you think? I also think this thing's not focusing very well, and it's frustrating. There we go. That's better. Then he pulled the garden hose through the window. That's crazy right there, man. Look at that. He opened the tap and sprayed water all over the powder. That's not good. Bubbles began to form and there was some lather. Uh-oh, he's making a huge mess. And more lather, and more lather, and more lather. Whoa. Curious George. In no time, the whole room was full of lather. Oh my gosh. So full indeed that George had to escape in a hurry. Yikes! Look, he's going out the window. George is escaping. When he was safely out of the house, he first turned off the tap, but what next? How could he get rid of all that lather before his friend came home? George sat down in the grass and thought for a long time. He's trying to figure it out, I guess. Look at the frog. Finally, he had an idea. He would get the big shovel and shovel the lather out the window. But where was the lather? Well, George had been outside thinking it had turned into water. Now the room looked like a lake and the furniture like islands in it. The shovel was no use. A pump is what George needed. Look at that. He made a mess. To get the water out, he knew just where to find one. He had seen a portable pump down at the farm, way down there on the other side of town. Look, George's going to run down there and see if he can find the pump. The farmer was away working in the fields. Nobody noticed George when he got the pump out of the shed. It was heavy. He would need to pull it all the way back to the house. Look at that pump. In the farmer's shed down there. Maybe he could tie the goat to the pump and make her pull it. But just as George was about to slip the loop over the goat's head, he was hurled through the air and landed near a pen full of pigs. How do you think that happened? The goat headbutted him. Bah! Boom! There he goes, rolling down. The biggest pig was standing near the gate. What if George opened the gate just enough to let him out? A big pig could easily pull a small pump. Carefully, George lifted the latch. Look at that. He's going to let the pig out, and he's going to get him to pull the pump. Uh-oh, but before he knew it, all the pigs had burst out of the pen, grunting and squealing and trying to get away as fast as they could. George was delighted. He had never seen anything like it. For the moment, all his troubles were forgotten. But now the pigs were all gone and not a single one was left to help him with the pump. Uh-oh. Look at that, the pigs are running everywhere. They look pretty happy. Maybe they're going to get a ham sandwich. Luckily, there were cows grazing nearby. Cows were gentle and strong. It would mean nothing to a cow to pull the pump for him. He's trying to get somebody to help him pull that pump. This time George was right. The old cow did not mind being tied to the pump. She even let him climb on her back, and off they went. George was glad. Now he would soon be home, pump out of the room, and everything would be all right. Meanwhile, the farmer and his son heard the squealing of the pigs. They rushed home from the fields and now had their handfuls trying to catch the pigs. Get the pigs back in the sty! Not until the last pig was safely in the pen did they have time to look around. And what did they see? A little monkey riding on their cow, making off with their pump. You are kidding me. The chase was on. George and the cow were ahead at first, but the pump was slowing them down. The farmers were getting closer and closer. Wait! Bring back our cow and our pump! Now they had almost caught up with them. But where was George? Where did George go? Here he was, hiding in his shirt. The farmers had run past him, but on their way home they had to come back the same road. George did not feel safe in his hiding place. Just then a truck came rattling down the road. George jumped aboard. Monkeys are good at jumping, and he was gone before the farmers had a chance to see him. Now he's in a truck going somewhere. The truck drove to a part of town that George had never seen before. At last it stopped in front of a large building. It was a museum. George did not know what a museum was. He was curious. While the guard was busy reading his paper, George slipped inside. He walked up the steps and into a room full of all sorts of animals. At first, George was scared, but then he noticed that they did not move alone, that they did not move. They were not alive. They were stuffed animals put in the museum so everybody could get a good look at them. There they are. Let's see, there's a big stegosaurus. In the next room, George saw something so enormous it took his breath away. It was a dinosaur. Look at that. A family came to take a look at the dinosaur. They paid no attention. The little monkey was standing there. The monkey did not move. Look at George. He's pretending to be a dinosaur helper or something. He's in the museum too. Crazy. George was glad when they were gone. Now he could pick the nuts. He climbed up on the dinosaur's neck and started to pull, but the nuts would not come off. Guess why? They weren't real. Crash! Down came the tree on the dinosaur's head. Down came the dinosaur and down came George. Guards came rushing in from all sides. They pulled him out and brought him to Professor Wiseman, who is the director of the museum. Uh-oh. Professor Wiseman was terribly angry. Lock that naughty monkey up right away. Uh-oh. George was carried off in a cage. He felt so ashamed he almost wished he were dead. Suddenly the door opened. "George," somebody shouted. It was his friend, the man with the yellow hat. The man with the yellow hat came to rescue him at the zoo. But maybe this letter will get you out of it. It's from Professor Wiseman. He needs your help for an experiment. And here's what the letter said. Dear George, a small spaceship has been built by our experimental station. It is too small for a man, but would carry a little monkey. Would you be willing to go in it? Oh, wow. So you are George, Professor Wiseman said. If I had only known. Of course, everything will be forgiven if you are willing to go. They got the smallest spacesuit for George and all other things he needed for the flight. Then he helped them put them on and showed him how to use them. When everything was ready, a truck drove up with a special television. George is going into space, man. I wonder if he'll see Tinker and Tanker up there. So they put his helmet on him, and the television station was taking pictures of George. Look, there's the monkey going into space. The great moment had come. They're going to blast him off into space. Bye, George. Be careful. We'll see you when you get back. And whoa, George is off into space. They all turned and looked at George as he said goodbye. Now the moment had come for George to bail out. Bail out, bail out, bail out. He went all the way up into space, and he was coming back, and he parachuted out. Ooh, and he drifted safely down to the earth. An open parachute came floating down. The truck raced over to spot George where he would land. What a welcome for George. Professor Wiseman hung a big golden medal around his neck. Because, he said, you are the first living being to come back to Earth from a space flight. And on the medal it said, to George, the first space monkey. Yay! This must have been a long time ago, because there's been space monkeys. Maybe he was the first, I guess, huh? Yay! Yay! Hooray for George! Yay, George! Way to go! Woohoo! And that's all she wrote. And there's a picture of George with his medal looking in the mirror. And he was forgiven for all the big mess he made, I suppose. The end. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.